That's my favorite part, by the way, when the priest devil is standing outside and it's like raining and stuff, and he's like, just come outside.
Come outside. You want some rope?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Blood and Donuts. I'm Tony.
And I'm Chris. What's up, everybody?
Yeah, what's up? Here at the Blood and Donuts podcast, we will start by sharing an overview, facts, and our first impressions. Then, each of us, Chris and I, will give our donut rating before we go into a scene-by-scene discussion that's full of spoilers. But don't you worry, folks. We'll let you know before we do that. Chris, how does that donut rating even work?
So we rate our movies on a scale of 1 through 13 donuts. 1 through 4 would be considered terrible. Don't go out of your way or check this one out at all. We don't recommend it. 5 through 8 is kind of like a mid-range. It's worth a watch if you have time. It's not terrible, but it's not great. 9 through 12 is great. You'll definitely want to check out a 9 through 12, even if you need to rent it. And 13, Tony, that's a Baker's Dozen tier. That's pretty rare. We would consider that a perfect horror film, the discussion for best of all time. And while we got you here, we also want to say, hey, go check out our Spotify and Apple podcast. Go, take us on the road with you. Listen in the car. Listen while you're at the gym. We talk horror all the time. So we got a lot of movies in the catalog. So we appreciate you checking us out.
Absolutely. And also, we want to be your friend on Instagram, Blood and Donuts Podcast. Look us up there, befriend us, and you can even have a conversation there. We post a lot of pictures and episode snippets even before they come out. So please be our friends on Instagram. The Dark and the Wicked, a 2020 American supernatural horror film written and directed by Brian Bertino. It follows two siblings who encounter a demonic entity at their familial farm visiting their mother, who has long been caring for their infirm father.
Was this one direct to DVD or streaming, or was it out in the theaters and stuff?
Well, you see that year 2020, and you just go ahead and say, oh, everything was COVID, so this was everything I read about this one. It was like a Shudder exclusive type of deal. It looked like it went straight to Shudder. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I'm getting the feeling on this one about.
And that sounds right, because I just recently became bougie and subscribed to AMC Plus, and I have Shudder now.
Man.
So I was able to watch it for free,
man,
quote unquote.
Is Shudder great? Is it awesome? Is there a lot of cool stuff on there?
There's a lot of movies on there that I've seen, and a lot of movies that look like they're pretty cool. So, who knows?
Yeah.
I'll try not to just go heavy on the AMC Plus when I pick movies, though. I promise.
Well, we went heavy on this one because this one has very high Rotten Tomato rating of 90%, right?
Yeah. Every time I searched, I'm like, man, I want to pick a movie for the podcast. Every time I searched good horror movie, great horror movie, this was in the top row. This was one of the ones it was recommending to watch. So I was like, yeah, we need to get that on the list. I've never heard of it before I started searching. So, yeah.
And my initial thoughts on this one, it's a very frightening, scary movie. There's some good scary elements in this, and I think the creepy elements, those scary visuals and stuff, I think they're very well done.
Yeah, I think it's not anything you haven't seen before.
Yeah, but
it's done really well. You know what I mean? You've seen these same type of jump scares, but they're really well paced, I think. And they're really well, just the atmosphere is really good too.
Yes. Bertino kind of left this film ambiguous. And in my opinion, it seems a little too ambiguous at times, because it's
even for you,
even for me, it seems it's to the point of, I understand, you want to sit here and he's like, I'm gonna just put the characters in there. Here's the horror elements, and then let your mind go wild. Okay, that's great. Yeah. But he even goes so far as to set up rules and then break them, kind of messing with the audience a little bit. And and the ambiguity almost comes off as lazy at times. If you know what I mean? I could set up a backstory for these people, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let you guess the entire way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now that you mentioned that, it's kind of sometimes you want a story to be told. And then in this case, it's just major plot, but there's nothing's really fleshed out. Yeah. And there's a lot of time in this movie that it could have been.
Yeah. But it's isolation, it's grief, demonic oppression, depression.
Yeah.
Also a little bit of like we kind of even off air we kind of compared it to a movie that we did here, When Evil Lurks. When Evil Lurks, I feel like does it much better.
Yes, as we were watching this one, not me and you, but me and my wife, when we were watching it, I was like, this is like a lesser version for me, a lesser version of When Evil Lurks, because I really enjoyed Evil Lurks. It was my first 13 and the first 13 that we rated on the podcast, but
Even have the
man,
sheeps and goats in there, you know?
yeah, you got the evil goats, creepy goats, like our guest John says sometimes,
Right.
like we need more evil goats
Right.
in movies, and this one provides. But yeah, I agree. It's almost like When Evil Lurk took the premise and everything and just made it a lot better.
This movie was filmed at the Bertino family farm. It was in Texas. So just to give it a real rural horror setting, but he filmed it at his family farm.
Yeah, that was one of those nuggets that I was going to provide for you. But hey, what did you think? I was going to ask you this as we kind of talk. When because I kind of had to rewatch the movie. And as I was watching it, like every time something major happened, it would like flash up a day of the week.
Yeah.
Did that take you out at all, or was that just whatever? It's a weird, like, hey, another day passed or something. I don't know if I liked it.
Yeah, it was almost like it was like, man, so that was Monday, and it always ended on a crazy Tuesday. You know what I mean? And you're just like, what?
And then they wake up in bed, and I'm like, well, how did they get from the scary crap to bed? Like,
what I
go to sleep?
What I found by like Tuesday or Wednesday, I was like, why haven't y'all left yet? That's all I was thinking. I was just like, it was kind of like, in
told you not to come.
That ambiguity there with this family. This family apparently, and again, I have to speak to this because this is me guessing because nothing is given to you here. You have a family that arrives at a farm because dad's on his deathbed. He's about to die. And we're here to support mom. But apparently, we've never supported each other. This family is like way miles apart. They don't really like each other. The brother doesn't like the sister, and the dynamic is so weird and odd. And they sit at a dinner table in silence, to the fact when the mom... And we'll get to more in the scene by scene discussion a little bit later. But the mother is like you just said, y'all need to leave. And you're actually, and you're sitting there, and the kids are like, man, mom's just being mom. I tell
like they haven't visited mom and the farm in like 10, 15 years.
Right. That's exactly what it seems like. And then mom she seems angry, but at the same time they don't really realize that she's encountered an evil force, and it takes them a while to even come up with that.
About 3 days, accounting from the cards in the movie.
This movie employs a mix of practical and digital effects to create its unsettling visuals. There's a few digital effects on here. Spiders that didn't look real to me. I don't know.
Yeah, there was one spider that was actually hanging off the priest's hat.
Yes.
When he was outside. I guess that was actually real.
Interesting.
But then in the trailer with the cutting and CGI, I was like, man, that's a bit lame. I was like, okay, whatever.
The cinematic ending, it leaves the audience questioning reality, much in a psychological horror film like The Witch in 2015. I like a good bad in a horror film. I've often said that I hate a happy ending.
Right.
This has no let up. There's no good out of this whatsoever. There's no peace.
Right.
It doesn't even start out happy. Some horror films start out with children playing, or maybe a couple's moving into a house and maybe they're painting and they're laughing and stuff. Like you stop. No, you stop. This doesn't give you anything. So I kind of like that about this. You get into this horror film and it really bogs you down. Like you're sitting here.
It's just relentless.
Yeah.
Relentless dread.
I came in and my wife was like, so how was the movie? I was like, depressing. It was very depressing.
I'm really sad now.
Yeah, I'm really sad.
I don't enjoy anything.
No good in anything, to be honest with you. But but I have to highlight the scary elements on this. There is some twitching. Yes. There's some good jump scares in this. And And there's some
This movie
brutality.
is really good. It's really good for the jump scares.
It
I
is.
think that's probably one of the real highlights. I mean, there's about 3 or 4 good ones, and we're horror fans,
Yeah.
and then when you catch yourself jumping, if you're a horror fan, like they did it right. You know what I mean? Like they did some good. So
Yeah, you
I have to tip my hat on that one.
tell dude knew what he was doing as far as like trying to scare an audience and stuff like that. Now, where like the storytelling, and it seems like a budget film because you didn't have a lot of set pieces. It seemed like throughout the movie, all like it was like big scary thing, go out to the porch and sit on the stairs. Big scary thing, let's go smoke a cigarette on the porch stairs.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just kept, there was not a lot of scenery or anything to go with it. Minimal
I can't believe
characters.
What happened to Mom? You want to smoke? Like,
Yeah.
well, we talked to her. That what good did that do? Because they're arguing and stuff.
That's hilarious.
And it really, not a big cast either. I mean, you have the family, the brother and sister that come by to visit the mom, the dad. I mean, how do you get that role? He just lays in bed most of the movie.
Did he get paid? Did he get paid?
He knocked it out of the park, is what he did.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did.
was great.
We just
at
need
laying
you
in
to
the
sleep.
bed and not
No,
doing a damn thing. He's like, what? I gotta stand up and shake my head in front of the shower. God.
Well, so speaking of the dad, there was 3 characters that kind of look like the dad in this, and it threw me off a couple of times. The priest,
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
and
priest.
the farm friend,
one of the farm hands. Yeah.
and then him. I feel like I was like, can we just like, can one be a redhead and one be like a younger guy? Why do they all 3 have to be older gentlemen with facial hair, all white headed guys?
I know it's a small role, but surely we could do better than this.
Do we have to put up with this? I mean, can't we get a better actor? I know it's a small part, but I think we can do better than this.
I know it's a small. You got Maureen Ireland who played Louise. I think she was great, especially in her intense emotional performance. She seems like a redneck from Texas who's coming back. You know what I mean? She didn't wear no makeup. She looks very distraught, all that stuff. Michael Abbott Jr. plays Michael. If his acting was okay.
Yeah, it was fine. And I felt like there was kind of like, there wasn't really a one lead that stood out. It was almost like they were both kind of leads.
Yeah.
Like they both kind of carried the weight of main protagonists, if you will.
Yeah.
You know?
If any of them, so obviously Maureen Ireland stands out when there's a point where she's on the phone and she's crying and she's screaming. Lots of emotion there. That was crazy. I think Xander Berkeley, who plays the mysterious priest, when he's sitting at that table, I think that's very captivating acting. I think he knocked that out of the park. You know, when he's sitting there, he goes, just because you don't believe in a wolf don't mean he won't devour you, or something like that. It was just a great quote.
Out there, and he's like, he's already inside.
He's already inside, and he steps out. I was like,
really good.
I was like, I liked him. I liked that a lot.
So I found The Dark and the Wicked to be a decent, slow burn, tense horror film. It's not anything you haven't seen before, but it does pretty well with the atmosphere, the overall scares, and general creepiness. It can be argued that the burn is too slow at times, as I dozed off on the first watch. True story. I did a rewatch, though, of course, and I wonder if the slow portions added to atmosphere or just made me think the movie should have been a tad shorter. Could probably argue both. Some of the CGI we talked about looked a little dated. That didn't really take me out too much. I was teetering between an 8 and a 9, but with the good acting, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 13. I think this movie is best enjoyed with the lights out, no distractions, and maybe a little bit of caffeine.
Yeah, I could see that. And when I put it on, I was like, oh, hour and a half. I was like, that's great. It was about an hour and a half of runtime as far as like screen time and stuff. I was like, oh, that's not going to be too bad. But like you said, I'll talk about it in my rating as well. The Dark and the Wicked is an intense, unsettling horror film that thrives on atmosphere and well-executed scares. The isolated farmhouse setting adds to the creeping dread, making every shadow feel kind of dangerous. The film's use of jump scares is effective, never feeling cheap, but genuinely startling. The horror elements from eerie visuals to disturbing sound design are handled well, and the gore looks fantastic. Brutal without being too excessive. However, while the slow build works to create tension, some moments can feel dragged out, bordering on a bit dull. The story's left intentionally ambiguous, which adds to the mystery, but feels frustratingly vague at times. One of the film's most interesting aspects is how the director establishes certain rules for the supernatural presence, only to break them unexpectedly, keeping the audience on edge. Despite its flaws, The Dark and the Wicked delivers a chilling, unpredictable horror experience that lingers after you watch it. I will highly recommend The Dark and the Wicked for a rent, and I give it an 8 out of 13 donuts. It's not one that I want to own. It's not one that I want to watch 2 or 3 times.
It's not one you're going to turn on at Halloween or anything. And even though, I had to rewatch it a time or two or whatever, but now that I know what I know, I'm not gonna go enjoy it again.
But I see what you're saying. This is one like, hey, you want to watch this? You want to watch a scary movie? You know what I mean? Like, oh, this thing's creepy. Yeah. There's some good creepy scares in there if you haven't seen it. Yeah. And like Chris said, he watched it on Shudder.
Shudder, yeah, which is through AMC Plus, if you will.
There you go. And I had to pay for mine, unfortunately, $3.99. I watched it on YouTube. We're about to go scene by scene and spoil this thing. So if you haven't seen it, there is a lot of I want to say there's a lot of things that we could spoil, but it's pretty straightforward as far as that goes. But some good scenes, and we'll talk about that right here. Here come the spoils, guys. Louise and Michael are siblings who are brought back to their family farm in Texas when their father's illness, which keeps him bedridden, uncommunicative, cared by his wife and nurse, worsens. Their mother seems disturbed and expresses a desire for the children to leave.
You don't need to be here.
At night, she hangs herself in the barn after cutting off her fingers in the kitchen.
Ugh. I told y'all not to come. She says that a lot. But like the atmosphere, you kind of get it right off the bat. Like it's a remote farm. There's creepy goats, and like the mom is kind of just tending around the house. The son and daughter are there to just kind of help out. But like I said, it seems like they haven't been there in a long time. So it's kind of like a fragile relationship there. But I do like the atmosphere and the setup and stuff like that.
And they from the very start of this movie, it sets up that atmosphere. You got mom at the farm just by herself. She's out with the goats. She's writing in her journal, and then she's making food, like cutting onions or something like that. And then all of a sudden a chair just kind of drags out from under the table. And you're just like, oh, there's something there. I don't know if you saw in the barn, you could see a dark presence, a demon in the beginning.
I saw it in the house when she walked by. Or something.
You really had to look for it and like kind of pause the screen to see it. But there was definitely a demon in there, almost like a vampire looking thing, which also comes back at the very end. At that final moment.
And really quick, too, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't see the cover art for this movie in the movie because it looks creepy as hell, but then that is not really shown.
She levitates, but it's only about 6 inches off the ground.
Yeah, it's not.
At some point, Michael looks out the window, and she's definitely levitating, but it's not like on the cover art. It's red,
and it's not mom either in the cover art. It's like Louise or something.
Yeah, and it's just huge levitating thing. But but she's cooking. They show up. She's cooking and she's cutting carrots, like chopping. She's chopping her ass off. I mean, you hear. Those fingers are gone. You know it. Like what you could tell by the fierceness that she's cutting with those things. And then she cuts her fingertips off, and then she cuts the next layer, like the finger digits down, and then she keeps cutting her fingers up into little pieces. It's the craziest thing with a smile on her face. It doesn't bother her.
And I don't think the kids see her after that, do they? I mean, I think they just find her in the barn after that.
Yeah, after that they find her in the barn. They see her afterwards in other places. The devil himself is a shape-shifting demon looking thing, and he can shape-shift. The devil, they give the devil, I'm going to call him the devil in this. He could be a demon. And again, I've read in some forums, it could be a figment of their imagination. That's how up in the air all of this is. This could be just in their own heads. But for the way I watched it, this devil was haunting this family. He can take any shape. He can actually produce scenes that didn't, at one point Michael walking in and say,
hallucinations.
Hallucinations. He's very powerful. But I'm getting like the rules that I was talking about. That nurse will talk a little bit later about, love. If love is not present, then the devil can take over and take your soul. But I don't understand why he let. I don't understand it all, to be honest with you. And that's the ambiguous thing that kind of
why is the dad's soul so damn important?
Why is it so important? And the only thing I can come up with is he's keeping, he's leaving the dad alone and keeping him alive so he can get the kids to the house to end up killing everybody.
To get all of them.
Yes.
He wants them goats.
But he wants them to kill themselves, suicide. That way he can have their souls because they're damned at that point.
Every death that you see in this one is suicide.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
As time goes on, Louise and Michael start to understand what happened to their mother. The nurse confides in them that she heard her whispering to the father, but it seemed as if she was speaking not to him, but to some other presence. Michael finds the mother's diary, which describes her fears of an unnamed and possibly demonic presence preying on her husband.
Yeah, that shower scene, it leaves a lot to be desired. But the scare with the dad standing there, man, that was a good one. And the dad looks creepy. And because it's already been a good 30, 40-ish minutes. The dad hasn't moved. Maybe he turned over or something, but that's it. So you don't expect him to be standing there. And it's almost like a sibling argument where like one's in the shower and one's about to use the restroom. And you're like, what the heck? I'm in here,
Right.
Wait your turn or whatever. And then like she opens the curtains up and it's dad standing there, and that's pretty creepy.
And he pisses himself. And he does like this shake, which was I remember it from House on Haunted Hill, the newer version. I love that twitch horror, and I wish they used
Big fan of that.
I wish they used that in more places because that looked so creepy, so creepy.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt at all.
When you do that.
And then you got the diary. The diary is just like whatever. It's time filler. It's kind of boring at times because you just see her just sitting there. After all this crap is happening, people are dying and stuff. She's still reading this freaking diary. I don't know. Not a lot comes.
And then the brother's like, it don't matter.
It don't matter.
She tried to cut her damn fingers off.
None of it matters.
Carrots.
Yeah, that's what he said. Oh my gosh. And
talking to her did.
Yeah, and it's like. And he talks to his family a little bit later. He talks to his wife. And he's just like, mom, I'm only here for mom. You know what I mean? I don't care about anything else.
Right.
Like he really did. You know what I mean? Like dad's gone. And the sister's like, how about me? And he's like,
apparently he really likes goats too. Cause he makes it known that he's going to go save some damn goats later on. I ain't going to let them goats die.
He was almost like that. Yeah. We'll get there here in a minute. But like all the goats.
Sorry, I keep jumping ahead.
All these goats just get like desecrated, like just totally killed, all of them. And there's just like a few left. And one is a suckling mom who still has like little lambs that are sucking. And he's like, damn it, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to stay with her tonight so she's not alone. It was almost like, I don't know, like any kind of like love after talking to that nurse, any kind of love that he could give. I really don't know.
Yeah. And we're talking about it now, but we'll get to it. But even the sister's like, why don't you need to stay in here with me and dad? And he's like, no, I got to go stay with them goats. Like he doesn't care about the family. He's worried about the family of goats.
So he starts losing his mind a little bit later, and that's when the devil can get a hold of you, as when you start breaking down. Mm-hmm. At their mother's burial, Louise and Michael meet Father Thorne, a priest who claims to have known their mother. Later that night, Father Thorne appears at the farm, beckoning them from outside before vanishing before their very eyes. Meanwhile, Charlie, a ranch hand who lives on a nearby plot of land in his RV, witnesses a vision of what appears to be Louise cutting herself repeatedly with a kitchen knife. The entity drives a distraught Charlie to shoot himself in the head with his own shotgun.
Why don't you come outside? That's my favorite part, by the way, when the priest devil is standing outside and it's like raining and stuff, and he's like, just come outside.
Come outside.
You can't just show up here.
You want some rope?
Oh,
It's really creepily done. And you can tell that it's not the priest. It's definitely the devil.
it's crazy. The priest shows up, and they're like, my mom. He's like, I've really gotten to know your mom since y'all have been gone, and she's had a really hard time with this, and there's a demonic presence here, and they're like, she don't even believe in God. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
what do you?
Matthew's really mad about it.
Yeah.
He's like, what have you been talking to her about?
What have you been filling her head with, man? And and he gives this awesome performance there at the table. One of the most memorable lines.
You think the wolf cares if you believe he's a wolf? Hmm? Not if he finds you alone in the woods.
About the wolf, and
Yeah.
it's so good. And then he shows up at 3:00 in the morning out there in the yard, and like you said, it is such a good scene. He has white eyes. Why don't you come outside? It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it really is.
Charlie. I don't know why the devil messes with Charlie, and I don't know why he leaves the farm and he's able to do that, or what's going on there.
Yeah, it's you have, I guess Charlie's really the only, you have the brother, sister, you have mom and dad, you have Charlie, who's like the farmhand. Then you have the nurse that kind of comes in and checks on the dad.
Yeah.
And then there's one other little girl, and I think it is Charlie's daughter. She comes by a little bit later.
But is it?
And it's just, yeah, and it's just used as another little suicide, creepy, it's used as another scare. That's kind of when it starts to get a little repetitive in the same category that we've already seen, the come up beside you scare.
Yeah.
So it's really a small cast, but they're just, none of them you really kind of care about. They're like Charlie, what's he done? I mean, he could leave and probably should. I mean, he's just a farmhand.
You meet Charlie, and then you meet a nurse, and then everybody else is the devil for the most part.
Yeah. They all, they're all going to get toasted.
And they all get toasted eventually. Nobody gets left behind. Louise is unable to reach Charlie by phone, unaware that he is dead. Louise calls the phone number that Father Thorne gave her to ask why he visited the farm the night prior. The man who answers claims he's never met her and says that he lives in Chicago and he's never been to Texas. Worried for their father's safety, the siblings summon a doctor for a house call and request that dad be moved to a hospital. The doctor determines that their father's health is grave and that he's on his deathbed. He tells the siblings he can't relocate him to a hospital because moving him could result in him dying en route.
Man, yeah, that's pretty. I mean, I guess that just like, nobody's leaving the house.
Yeah.
That's the excuse there. What did you think of the switcheroo there with the like, I've never even been to Texas. I'm in Chicago, and it's almost like the devil was tormenting some dude in Chicago.
Yeah,
because he had recently lost a daughter or something, and now he's kind of tormenting this other poor soul over there.
Why would you do this?
I didn't.
You sound just like her.
Her name was Louise, and she sounded just like our Louise in this movie, which is nuts.
Why would you do this?
Yeah, why are you doing this to me? Why are you calling? So just taking his form, tormenting him. He's probably going to commit suicide now, way over there in Chicago. It's
he's
just
busy, man, the devil.
Oh, man.
He's a busy guy.
He's working his butt off, man.
Some OT.
The doctor comes, and finally you get some sanity between this family. They're like, we got to get him out of here. This is not a safe place to be.
It's all right.
It's all right. The doctor comes, and he's like, hey, your dad, he's going down. He's about to die, and he's going to die the moment we pick. Like, this is pointless.
Yeah.
We're not going to take him anywhere.
In fact, here, let me help him real quick. We can speed this along.
He didn't say that. He didn't say that.
He didn't say that.
No. And it turns out the doctor's the devil too. No. I was waiting for that. There's no telling,
Yeah, right.
On the farm, Louise and Michael find that their large herd of goats have all been brutally killed. The two start a bonfire to dispose of the numerous animal carcasses. That night, Michael is approached in the barn by an apparition of his nude mother, who disappears as he approaches him. Later, while Louise lies in bed beside her father, she has a nightmare in which the entity attempts to possess her, but she manages to resist it before witnessing her father levitating against the ceiling.
And yeah, the weird infatuation of Matthew keeping up with the goat herd. And it's like, why does he have to do it in the middle of the night? Can he not tend to the goats in the daytime? Like,
Well,
I don't know. I
Dad,
just thought that was funny.
Dad, and they repeated it a couple times. Dad was famous for saying, "Well, while I'm here, we'll be working." You know what I mean? So even the mom repeated that. She goes, "While I'm here, we're working. You know, we'll work and we'll take care of it." So, so Michael kind of took that same saying and used it as well.
Yeah.
It just, I'm going to stay busy. I'm going to take care of the farm as long as, it kind of like keeps your mind off of it, I guess. But yeah, there was a pretty large herd of goats and sheep, and they were desecrated. I mean, absolutely. It was hundreds of them. And they were like, a wolf would never do this,
And it's like one of them was able, like the devil let one of them live.
Yeah.
So they could go back to the house. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like limping on three legs back to the house to kind of like scare the family. Like, oh crap, what happened to the rest of them?
Weird.
And I thought that other than the priest there with the come outside bit, I thought the sequence with Matthew and the mother while he's trying to sleep, I thought that was a really good sequence when she's standing outside.
Oh, so good.
Comes up beside him to scare him and stuff. I thought that was a really good sequence.
Yeah, Matthew's trying to sleep and the lights click on. And then he's awake. He's like, wow, what turned that? So he gets up, turns the lights off, which is so creepy. You just hear the creepy noises. Yeah. This the sound design on this, lots of violin, like bad, like violin.
Yeah,
and so lots of atmosphere, music stuff. And then he looks out the window, nothing's there, turns the light off again, gets up, looks out the window, there's mom smiling creepily and levitating a little bit. It is one of the craziest scenes. I don't think she's naked in that particular one. And then he goes to the barn when he's taking care of those mother goats, like you said, and that's when he starts hearing things. And then mom walks in, this time nude, and walks right up to him. He pulls out his own knife. He's about to take his own life, but under his own will and power, he's able to put the knife down. So he has something in him. He hasn't lost all hope just yet.
Right.
So, and he kept saying, "You're not real. You're not real." And he didn't want to believe it. And he put the knife down. So he was able to kind of master it for a little while anyway. In the morning, Charlie's granddaughter arrives at the farm and informs Louise that he killed himself 2 days prior. The girl's forlorn demeanor soon turns malevolent, and Louise realizes it is in fact the entity taking the shape of Charlie's granddaughter. She too disappears before Louise's eyes. The nurse arrives moments later to care for Louise and Michael's father.
And she was straight creepy from the jump, the granddaughter. Her name is Ella Ballantine, the actress, and she is actually in another one of Brian Bertino's films, The Monster.
Oh, nice.
So a little factoid for you here in the spoiler section. But
I thought she was great. She showed up. She seemed sad. She's like, I just thought somebody should tell y'all that. And then all of a sudden, she has this big grin on her face, and she goes,
"Yeah, like from Smile."
She goes, "Do you smell it?
You smell him? I smell him too."
Oh man, is he starting to smell? He smells rotten, don't he? And or something like that.
Is he rotten yet?
Is he rotten yet? Ooh, it's crazy. And
I would not have let her in from the jump.
No. You need to come in. I'm glad you're here. I was here by myself, kind of thing. And then she falls to the ground, and then the girl disappears, but then shows up beside her with black eyes. And there's like that final jump scare right there, which I thought was really good too.
Little girl.
Oh yeah. They do. I think it just needs to be said again. the scares themselves are really good, and you expect them, you know they're coming,
Yeah.
but they're still well executed. That's probably the best thing about this is the scares themselves.
Yeah. And there's quite a bit of them. Meanwhile, Louise finds that Michael has fled the farm. He's smart here. To return to his wife and daughters, leaving her behind, Michael calls Louise from his cell phone and tells her that she should leave too. Moments later, the nurse possessed by the entity begins stabbing herself with a pair of sewing needles, attacking Louise in the process before stabbing herself in the eyes and killing herself.
So does it count as a killing yourself if the devil's possessing you? Because it seems like that's what's happening. Because there's no way someone's going to commit suicide by, and I'm not trying to make light of suicide or anything, but usually it's like a toaster in the bathtub or something like that. This is like, I'll take a sewing needle and I'm going to start poking holes in various places. Like, it just seems like that's possession, not really suicide.
It seems very brutal, like you said, brutal, and just nobody would ever do this. This is like you never found anybody aside from like maybe like in a a sane asylum or something like that who has committed suicide in this particular way. I can't imagine.
And you said it, but the even really just picks horrible ways for people to die. And the next part's really creepy too. Yeah.
The thing about the nurse that surprised me is she seemed like she was going to be the good person in this, and
she was kind of like the hope.
She was she was a little bit of hope, but then it just like ruined. It's like all hope is gone.
Right? Yeah.
And
once the nurse is done, you're like, okay, everybody's dying.
Yeah.
Because if anybody's going to live, it's going to be the nice, sweet nurse.
And you're like, okay, Michael's getting out of there. He's driving home. You thought he was going to be beckoned back. Maybe, you're like, oh, he's gonna have to come back. You really didn't think like, oh, the devil's gonna follow him home type of deal.
Right. Like he's on the phone and he's like, I'm not coming back. Yeah. I'm going with my family. I'm done. I'm done at the barn.
Yeah.
Done at the farm.
But he does have this weird conversation where Louise is like, you're all I have. And he's like, I love my wife. I love my kids. And even when he, like earlier when he was talking to his wife, he's like, I don't have anybody here. I was here for mom, Like, I don't know. Their relationship is very estranged, and
he really hates his sister.
He really hates his sister.
Man.
Michael arrives at his home and he finds the dead bodies of his daughters and wife in the kitchen in what appears to have been a murder-suicide. A distraught Michael cuts his own throat and moments after observes that the bodies of his wife and daughters have disappeared. He realizes the entity has tricked him when his wife and daughters enter the house moments later and they find him bleeding to death.
Ugh. And the whole the music when that's going on too, it's really it's really unsettling.
Yeah.
This movie really reminded me of When Evil Lurks. I know this came out first, but I just got such like When Evil Lurks vibes. I was like, man, and I think When Evil Lurks drew a lot of inspiration from this movie with kind of like the shock factor of like the kids there at the table and things like that. I think it took a lot of those kind of shock elements and incorporated it into that.
Yeah, very brutal. Just to be brutal. No way around it. Like any hope was gone when that nurse, killed herself, and then you have Michael here killing himself, and then you just knew it was just a matter of time before Louise was gone. Back at the farm, Louise regains consciousness at nightfall, finds that her father is dying. Moments after he dies, the demon in turn attacks and claims her. So she does not die by suicide, right?
Ooh,
we really don't know.
It doesn't really show her die.
It just kind of like,
Yeah. It was one more jump scare before the credits started rolling in the theater, I think.
Yeah. We'll find out when, the dark and
the darker and the more wicked.
The darker and the wickeder comes out in the summer of 2028. It could be like, horror movies oftentimes will do that there at the end. And then on the sequel, they'll act like that didn't happen.
Right. Like Freddy.
Yeah. Freddy does it all the time. You can do that. You could do that.
Yeah. I did quite like this one. I thought it was a decent possession movie that wasn't all the way about possession. It was more just how can the devil brutally murder this poor family on this farm for this dude's soul who must have been gold or something.
Yeah, and
Maybe the devil wanted just a sweet gig of laying in bed all day in a movie or something.
right. And I think if this movie was, I don't know. I feel like it's popular, but I feel like it's not as popular as some. I feel like there would be huge forums of just people kind of just like explaining, having their own theories about what happened. Right here, the devil, he echoes loneliness and what Louise was feeling as a child. You know what I mean? Like those kind of things.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not doing that here. I'm just going to be kind of just like, we're just talking about how it happened, what we thought about it. And, you know, it was obviously just a very unhappy family who drifted way far apart. They obviously had huge bad things happen within their family. They came back for their dad dying, and the devil kind of just jumped on the fact that this family was broken and took them out one by one, you know, very brutal, very scary, very creepy movie, man. I was creeped out. Like you said, we watch a lot of horror films. We've watched 54 in the past year, and year and a couple months. And this one gave me the creeps. Some of these scenes were very creepy.
Did you watch this one kind of in the dark and kind of by yourself?
Yes,
and
I
stuff
did.
Like that,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
isolated, where you're just focused on the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like this one wouldn't be as effective if you had like some interruptions or anything like that. Not that you had to like someone was talking to you, but like if you had to pause the movie and go do something and then come back, it might not have been as effective as you kind of sit there and kind of take it all in at once.
Yeah.
While you're focused on it, if that makes sense.
Most horror films are that way. You know what I mean? Like you don't need you don't need to be watching a horror film, you know, like in a room at a party or something like that. You know what I mean? Well, I don't know.
Sure.
If you've seen it 100 times and you got Halloween playing at a Halloween party, you're like, oh, look, Michael's about to get him. Michael's about to get him. You know, that would be fun. But like most of these horror films that you haven't seen, turn the lights off. You really got to set the mood. And I watch most horror films by myself, and it you know. And especially ones like this where it's like very lonely, very right here on this isolated on this tight farm and stuff like that. Watching them by yourself will really creep you out.
Yeah. Well, hey everybody, we appreciate you joining. Remember to like and subscribe. We got some good stuff coming up, Tony. Next is your pick. We got the 2024 movie Strange Darling.
Darling. Man,
we'll be diving into that next. And after that, I have on there 28 Days Later. That's a gem from the early 2000s.
That's a good one. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we'll see you here in a couple of weeks, guys.